good afternoon or good evening for some. We have some operations with rational numbers homework that we're going over in Miss Starling's math class. If you wrote down these problem numbers and questions, great. If not, go ahead and pause the video so you can get the pages 10 through 26. And then 32 through 45. We're talking about operations with rational numbers. So operations are addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So I have been going over some questions in class, and we got through quite a bit on page 10 and 11 and some on 14. If your student parents do not have those answers written down, then they should have gotten them while they were in class. It is very important for them to stay attentive and stay attentive and focused in my class because there's so much to cover in 7th grade math. So on this page 38, I wanted to go over some multiplication and division of rational numbers, page 38. At the very tippy top, I made a note to myself that we are multiplying on this page. Page 38 and 39 is multiplication. Page 38 gives us the concepts, the naked problems, and then page 39 throws some words in there for us to challenge us. All of our tests are based off of word problems. So it's very important that not only your students know how to read and solve the concepts, but they also know how to decipher the words and the problems that are going to be given to us. So if we look at page 38, number 1, I've kind of done number 1 already, and I have 5 times negative 2/3. Some students may confuse this with an addition or subtraction problem. This is not 5 minus 2/3. I talked about it in class today, but we're going to see multiplication written in several different ways. We're going to see multiplication written like this. Multiplication. It's going to be written like A times B, where it's literally just AB. Now this is using variables because variables will be introduced in or reintroduced in 7th grade. They should have learned about them in 6th grade. And it will be A times B. A could be in parentheses and B could be in parentheses. It could be either or we can use an asterisk. But we want to try and stay away from the AXB because this X is going to eventually be a variable. Okay, that's what we're going to use and graduate to in 7th grade. Division is also going to be a little different looking. We're going to see it in fraction form, A over B. This is also a ratio. And we will have A slash B and A divided by B. And long division, A by B. Top in, bottom out. Keep that in mind. T-bow. We're going to T-bow a lot of things in mathematics this year and multiplication. Okay? Well, we're not going to T-bow multiplication, but we're going to be T-bowing a lot. Top in, bottom out. The top goes in, the bottom goes out. Some of you learned about the horse and the rider, the cowboy and the horse. Same thing. Cowboy goes inside the house, the horse goes out, obviously. And then I like to add 3 decimal places there. Okay, so those are just some tips and tricks for you to have. If you want to put this in your notebook, feel free to pause and write it in there. But this is also posted in my classroom. It's important information. Now, looking at your homework, Miss Starling never provides answers. I always tell you how to get the answer, but I will never give you the answer. That would defeat the purpose of my being an educator. Educators show children how to find answers on their own. We want y'all to use your own thinking, okay? So, for these problems here, 5 through 10, this is page 38, and number 16, this is what you're responsible for doing and turning in by tomorrow. This homework assignment is due tomorrow in its entirety. We have been working on this throughout the classes since Monday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Please turn it in by Thursday. Okay? So, this problem says 4 times negative 3. According to your integer notes, if I have the same signs, I'm going to make a note up here. my answer is going to be positive if I'm multiplying or dividing. If I have different signs, my answer is going to be negative if I'm multiplying or dividing. So because I have two numbers here, let me zoom in. Come on, camera, be my friend. Okay, it's really not liking me right now, so manually zoom in. Here we go. So I've got negative and a positive. -3 times +4. Because they have different signs, my answer is going to be negative. These two, a -1.8 and a +5. Because these have different signs, my answer is going to be negative. A -2 and a -3.4. Because these have the same sign, my answer here is going to be positive. I have 0 and 5400ths times 8. They have the same sign, my answer is going to be positive. I have -5 and -1.2. My answer is going to be positive. They have the same sign. Same sign positive, different sign negative. I have -2.4 times +3, different signs, gives me a negative answer. I'm sorry if you guys couldn't see that. I'm not paying attention to what my camera's doing on my screen. There we go. So keep that in mind when you are multiplying these rational numbers. Then it gives you a couple more steps to break things down here. These aren't required, but these are good for practice. If you want more practice, great. The more you practice, the better you get at it. I believe in practice makes improvement, not necessarily perfection. Okay, so this is multiplying fractions, and then I have these three numbers here. So they also want us to know how to operate with three numbers at a time. Multiplying fractions, multiply the top times the top and the bottom times the bottom. So 1 times 2 is 2, and 2 times 3 is 6. So this ends up being 2 6 times 3/4. And 2 times 3 is 6 over 6 times 4 is 24. Then I would need to simplify that. They're both divisible by 6, which gives me 1/4. And I could have also simplified this by getting rid of the 2 on the bottom and top and getting rid of the 3 on the bottom and top, and I would be left with 1/4 anyway. That was a simplification step. Okay, but this just wants you to break it down and see how we multiply three numbers at a time. So same here, they bring the 7/3 over, and then they say, okay, a negative times a negative is going to give me a positive. So I'm going to make both of these positive, and then I'll be left with a negative number. So this is going to be a positive, put a little plus sign there to help me remember. So 4 times 3 is 12, and 7 times 5 is 35. 12 35ths. And then I have 12 times 7 and 35 times 3. And it's going to be a positive and a negative, so it's going to give you a negative answer. So negative 12 times 7 over 35 times 3. And I like to break things down so I can simplify it a little bit more, and I'll have to multiply 12 times 7 and then have 84 up here, and then 35 times 3 and have 95 down, 105 down here. So I'll say what times what gives me 12? 3 times 4 times 7. Don't forget your negative sign. It has to go somewhere, top, bottom, or in the middle, but one place only because I only need one of them. What times what gives me 35? 5 times 7 times 3. I have numbers on the top and the bottom that I can cancel out because ultimately they'll just give me one whole. By 7, by 3, I am left with negative 4/5. I have just simplified that problem. Now, going on down to the word problem. It says, in one day, 18 people withdrew $100 from an ATM machine. What is the overall change in the amount of money in the ATM machine? 18 people is important, withdrew is important, and $100 is important. I need the overall change. Remember, I'm going to be multiplying. Well, there's my reminder. All right. Withdrew is a word that they assume we know means. Withdrew means it's going to be a negative value. That's something from 6th grade, and we'll talk about these later on. Maybe on Thursday in class, we'll write down some important keywords that'll help us keep this in mind when we take our test on Friday. So I have a negative $100 18 times. Then that will give me my answer. All right, let's quickly flip on over to division. Division, it says find each quotient. I am going to divide. Okay, same rules apply. Excuse me. Same signs, I'm going to have a positive answer. Different signs, I'm going to have a negative answer. Now, with that being said, keep in mind the integer rhyme. I ask my children if they want me to sing the song. Miss Starling has a terrible singing voice, but I will sing that song over and over until it sticks to my memory. The integer song is in their notes, and if they missed writing it down in their notebooks, I always post things on Google Classroom. So you can scroll back to August 23rd and see that the integer rhyme is in there. Same signs, add and keep, different signs, subtract. Keep the sign of the greater absolute value, then you'll be exact. This is for addition and subtraction. Keep singing, multiply or divide. It's an easy thought. Same signs are positive, different signs are not. This is for multiplying and dividing. Okay, so that's why we have this little helpful riddle or rhyme that Miss Starling gave us the other day, so we can remember that when we do these things. It is okay to sing the song in my class. So division, we have to do problems 44, what numbers? 1 through 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I have 72 hundredths divided by negative 9 tenths. I have negative 1/5 divided by 7/5. I have 56 divided by negative 7, and I have 251 over 4 divided by negative 3/8. Two things I need to keep in mind over here: keep, change, flip, keep, change, flip, because I'm dividing fractions. So let's do one that's not required so you can see how I do it and then apply that to your own problem. Let's do number 8. I have negative 12 over negative 300. 12 over 300, and it's going to be negative. Right off rip, it gives me a negative answer because neither the 12 or the 0.3 are negative, so they put the negative sign to the side, which means they want my answer to be negative, if that makes sense. It's the same thing like saying this. Negative 12 divided by 300. Okay? Now I'm going to write my division problem. You must show your work. 0, 3. I cannot have a decimal out here, so I have to move it 2 places to the right. And I apply the do-do rule. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. So 1, 2. I now have 1200. How many times does 3 go into 12? 4. 12, 0. This is 400. And it'll be negative 400. Okay. Do I need to do another one? Let me jump over to number 5. 75 divided by negative 1/5. This is a keep, change, flip. How do I make a whole number a fraction? Add a 1 underneath it because it's still a division problem. I haven't changed the value. 75 divided by 1. Keep that, change this to multiplication, flip this, negative 5 over 1. My 1s are going to go away because 1 times 1 is just 1. This problem ends up being 75 times negative 5. Come over here, 75 times 5. I love this about dividing fractions because it turns into multiplication, which I love so much more than division, and I'm sure my students would say the same. So this is 25, and this is 375, and it is negative 375. Okay? That's how we do that. Please let me know if you have any other questions or comments or concerns on these problems through Google Classroom or email or Remind. Have a great evening.